Hello everybody, this is Tushar sir here and today we are going to discuss Keeping Quiet by Pablo Neruda. The theme of this poem is quiet introspection. The poet wants us to introspect, the poet wants us to meditate, the poet wants us to think, because if we introspect, we get to know a lot of things about ourselves and the world around. He tells us that when we introspect, we get to know that this rush and run after material possession is not at all important. We get to know that that unity is quite important, togetherness is quite important. Then we don't say harm our surrounding. We get to know that how our activities are harming ourselves. We understand that wars are futile and useless. Harmony must prevail, peace must be there. We get to know that we should come out of this pit of selfishness and our life should mean something. It should have some meaning and purpose. We get to know that why there is sadness in our lives and we are not at all afraid of death. Then, moreover, we learn something from this earth. So these are the things that the poet has talked about here in this poem. So now let's see from in a stanza-wise manner that what the poet has explained and how he has explained or expressed that. So he begins with counting. What he is saying, you can see here that now we'll count to 12 and you will all keep still. So why this counting to 12? And just okay, that poet doesn't know counting beyond that. What? After that? No, it's not, of course. This counting to 12 means that there are 12, why this 12 number especially, that's what I am telling you. That there are 12 numbers on the dial of a watch. There are 12 months in a year. We divide the time of a day into 12s. There are 12 zodiac signs. So that's why the specific 12 number. And this counting to 12, because it is not just 12, here it is counting to 12. So what does that mean? So that is a preparatory exercise. Yes. Just as we prepare ourselves for several things. We prepare ourselves before setting out on a journey. We prepare ourselves before exams. We prepare ourselves for lots of things, like the players prepare themselves. They warm themselves up before playing a match. So yes, preparation is necessary, and here too the poet wants us to prepare ourselves for that moment of meditation, for that moment of introspection when we'll all be silent. So that's why he is saying that counting to 12, now we'll count to 12. And when we are prepared, we have counted to 12. So when we are prepared, then we'll all be still. Yes, we'll all be silent and quiet. We'll get into that mood of introspection. That's what he is trying to tell us. And for once, he says, for once on the face of this earth, let's not speak in any language. Now why? He is trying to tell us, avoid the barrier of language. Yes. Avoid the barrier of language. We don't need a language to talk to ourselves, do we? Let silence be the language of communion. Of course, to meditate, to introspect, we don't need any language. We don't need words. We don't need to speak. So let's avoid them. Let's avoid this language, this barrier of language. It only creates barrier. And let silence prevail. Let silence be the language of communion with ourselves and communion with that Supreme Soul. And let's stop for 1 second and not move our arms so much. Now here, pun intended, and it has been asked once in your exam. See this. Not move our arms so much. So here, the figure of speech is pun. And what is pun? Pun means play on words. And here what a single word can be used to mean two different things. Like this arm. This arm means upper limbs, and arm also means what? Weapons, ammunitions. So what it has? Now here I'll give you some more examples how we use pun in sentences. That if I say that my dear, this dear is very dear. It's an example of pun. My dear is of course my dear. This dear, D-E-R, dear. And then again I'm using what? D-E-A-R, dear. But the meaning is different. I'm saying my dear, this D-E-R, dear, as you know, the animal. So my dear, this deer is very costly. That's what I mean. But the word D-E-A-R, dear, has two different meanings. So one, my dear, as I said, dear, darling, and the other one is what? That costly. So pun. Same way, if I say a tiger moves from sports to sports, but it never changes its sports. So sports to sports, places to places, and sports that flex on its body. So that too is an example of. So similarly here, arms, and it has been, as I said, once asked in your exam. So what here the poet means by arms? He is trying to say that, let's stop for 1 second. Now what people are engaged in, the rush and run of material possessions. People want awards and rewards and power and prestige and riches and money and this and that and what not. It goes on and on and on, and the greed never satiates. There is no saturation, satisfaction, satiation to the greed. So the poet says, avoid this rush and run and avoid quarrels. Getting what? Arms. 1, avoid the rush and run, and 2, avoid the quarrels, fightings. That's what he is trying to tell us. So let's spare some time for ourselves. Let's spare some time. Avoid all this rush and run, this hustle and bustle and all that, this hectic life and all. And just spare some time for yourself. And what? Introspect. Think, meditate. That's what he is trying to say. Now, let's move on to the next stanza. It would be an exotic moment without rush, without engines. So if this happens, what? That all are silent and meditating, introspecting, then that would be an exotic moment. That means unusually interesting moment. Yes, that would be an unusually interesting moment, because usually that doesn't happen. One or the other would be like engaged in the rush and run or some or the other activities. No rest, no peace, nothing. So what? When we all together introspect, that would be an unusually strange, unusually interesting moment. Without rush, without engines. Now these are symbolic. Okay. Engines. What? Symbolic of noise and movement. So when this would happen, there would be no rush, no hustle and bustle, as I said, no hectic helter-skelter activity or so, no such thing. No movement, all peace, all silence. And would all be together in a sudden strangeness. Means there would be a feeling of solidarity, there would be a feeling of unity, there would be a feeling of togetherness. We would all be together. So there would be a feeling of togetherness, that yes, we are all together. We'll understand the importance of togetherness then. Otherwise, we don't have time. We don't have time to think about all these things which we consider to be small, but they are not small, they are very big and important. So that is what the idea is. The poet is trying to tell us that what you avoid. Now, let's spare some time to think about those things, because they are very important. So, in a sudden strangeness, why in a sudden strangeness? So here we can see this alliteration. You can see that similar consonant sound here. So this is an example of alliteration. So that is, their atmosphere is all strange. As I said, generally it doesn't happen that all are silent and together introspecting and meditating. So when this would happen, it would really be a strange moment. Yes. And we will have several realizations. We'll come to understand several things. And what is that? The fishermen in the cold sea would not harm the whales. Now, this cold sea. What is this cold sea? This cold sea means indifferent world. Yes, we are living in an indifferent world. So let me explain this first. The fishermen, these are images actually. The fisherman and the man gathering salt, these are images. We people, the poet is talking of we people. That what happens that we go on harming the nature and we don't realize that how our activities are resulting in the harm to nature. We are destroying our surroundings and nature and we don't realize. The fishermen, they go on catching more and more in the greed, out of greed, that the more they collect, the more they get what? Money. So out of that greed. But in that process, now it doesn't matter whether they wrote, it doesn't matter, yes. But they want to collect more, they want to catch more. So in that process, what is happening? They are destroying nature, they are harming nature. And why? Because we are living in a cold sea. That is, we are living in an indifferent world, means we have become unsympathetic. We have no sympathy and no empathy for others. We have lost all fellow feelings. Just as we see the situations in metro cities, that people don't know, like even their neighbors. They don't know who is living beside them, who is living next door to them. They don't know. So that is the situation. So no fellow feeling. We see people dying on the road, and what others do? They simply make a video of that and then just post it on some social media. So people have turned to stone. They have no feelings at all, no emotions at all. They have become like that. And that's why they remain unmoved and unaffected. So we will understand this thing when we have some time, when we spare some time for ourselves. We'll get to know that yes, how the world has become so emotionless, how we have turned to stone and so unfeeling, callous. So that is the cold sea. That what do we do? That people, they like cut trees, they harm nature in different ways. Like factories, what do? They dump their waste in some nearby river or some nala or something like that. They dump it into that, some brook or so. And what? They don't care. They think, okay, we'll see it later. Let's do it now. Okay. We'll see. But when it comes to this level, it means they get to realize when the situation is beyond control. So we harm the nature in that way. People cut trees and they don't realize. What do? In place of the tree, they build a room. At least they'll get 5,000, 6,000 or something in rent per month. So they see that 5,000 per month or some amount per month, but they don't see that what will be the consequences of that act. You see the condition in Delhi. Yes, people have built what? Rooms after rooms after rooms, and all the, it's a concrete jungle there. Yes, it's a concrete jungle, a concrete forest. And the situation, we know there that it is worst, one of the worst polluted cities. So, we need to understand. When will we understand? When we introspect. And that's why the poet is asking us to introspect. And then the man gathering salt would look at his hurt hands. That means what? That the salt gatherer, out of greed, he goes on collecting more and more, that the more I collect, the more I get, of course, money. But in that process, what his own hands are bruised and blistered, and he doesn't realize that is secondary to him. He himself, his own health, his own body, that is secondary to him. What is primary? Yes, that I'll get money. But in that process, what? He's hurting himself. And that is today's man, that we are harming ourselves, our activities are harming ourselves, and we don't bother, we don't realize, we don't understand. That is not important for us. People have lots of, the lifestyle has become such that it is kind of hell that we are living in, the modern man. Morning till night, work and work and work, no time for himself and even for the family. That's today's life. And living with so many problems, cervical, some say BP, sugar, cholesterol, heart problems, so many joint pains, this, that, so many, a big tummy, carrying a big tummy, pot-bellied, yes. So what? That you can just place a cup here and have a drink, have a tea. So that is today's man. We talk of six-pack and here we have family packs. That. So that is today's man. In this hectic life, in this busy life, in this mechanical life, we have even lost, or say, we have stopped thinking about ourselves, right? So when we introspect, we'll understand that how our activities are harming. Now in this stanza, the poet is talking about wars. And yes, it has been once asked in your exam that how many types of wars the poet has mentioned or the poet is talking of in this poem. So you can just count this up, or you can even learn this as well. So those who prepare green wars, wars with gaze and wars with fire, victory with no survivors. Now those who prepare green wars, that means those who destroy nature, yes, those who harm nature, this deforestation, greenhouse effect, global warming. So the poet is talking of all that. So those who do all this harm nature in several ways. Wars with gaze and wars with fire, that means today we have all the deadly and dangerous weapons, all the lethal things. We have missiles and nuclear bombs. Yes, we have all such deadly things. But what is the use? The poet is trying to say, what is the use? Because if war happens, then what? You may attack the opponent, okay, you just dropped a bomb there, and you say, hooray, yes, clean sweep, all killed, all destroyed. And later they shell a bomb, they drop a bomb here, and yes, here too is a clean sweep. Then what will happen? Victory with no survivors. So what he is trying to say, that when you introspect, you will understand this thing, that it's no use. Wars are futile. Yes, wars are futile, meaningless, useless, because wars are ever beginning, they are never ending. They leave in its wake what only just cries and wails and laments and deaths and casualties. It leaves in its wake only these things and nothing else. And it goes on. As I said, it is ever beginning, it is never ending. Why? Because it creates a feeling of revenge, that you did this to me, you slapped me, you killed our people. Now I'll see, we'll show you what we can do. So it creates that feeling of revenge, and so what, it goes on and on and on. So wars are futile. So those who do all this, those who prepare green wars, wars with gas, wars with fire, we have chemical weapons, this gas and also that is about all that chemical weapons. And as I mentioned that today we have all the deadly and dangerous weapons. So it's about all that. So they will understand that they may have victory, okay, for once. But then who will be there to enjoy that victory? Who will be there? Because it brings about only total devastation and destruction. Yes. So those who do all this, then what? Would put on clean clothes. Would put on clean clothes and walk about with their brothers in the shade doing nothing. So what does this mean? Put on clean clothes, clothes, dresses, these are symbolic. These are symbolic. You know about different such uniforms and fascism and such thing, Nazism and khadi and this and that. So you know that uniforms are symbolic. So the poet is trying to say that when they introspect and they realize, they understand this fact that wars are useless, futile, then avoiding their extremities. Avoiding their extreme notions and extreme ideologies. What would they do? Would put on clean clothes. That means will become the followers of peace. Yes, they'll become pacifists. And walk about with their brothers. They'll understand the importance of what? Importance of brotherhood, fraternity. Yes, that we are all brothers. That we see what sometimes China just enters our borders, violates treaties, and then what? Today they, and tomorrow it may be we. Because yes, it's not always that fortune favors only one. It goes round like this. So if today you, then tomorrow it may be we. Then what is the use? That you may kill us today, tomorrow our people may kill your people. So it will go on this killing and this. And who is to benefit by this? Who is to benefit? None, nobody. So let's understand what Hindi Chin brothers. Yes. Fraternity, yes. Fraternity, you understand that. That is co-existence. That is the rule. We can live peacefully only when we understand the needs of others as well, when we support others as well. So in this moment of introspection, we'll understand about all these things. That coexistence is the rule. That is the way of life. That is the rule on this planet. And what? Walk about with their brothers in the shade, doing nothing. It means avoiding their what? Destructive activities, doing nothing. Avoiding destructive activities, what? In the shade, that means in a peaceful atmosphere, in a harmonious atmosphere, they will just live. So, this is the importance of introspection, that you understand such things, such very, very important, very fine things that otherwise you don't pay attention to. And now, in the next stanza, the poet is saying that what I want should not be confused with total inactivity. See, don't confuse my words with total inactivity. I don't want you to be totally inactive. No. Don't think that, that Pablo Neruda has said that now introspect and meditate. So just keep aside everything, just put aside everything, and now I'll meditate. I'll introspect. So the poet is saying, see, I'm not saying so. I don't want you to be some Baba or some saint or hermit like. No, not at all. I'm not asking you to be like that. I just want you to spare some moments for introspection. Yes. I don't want you to be a recluse, live a life of hermit. Not at all. Just some time, some moments to introspect. And see, life is what it is about. So total inactivity, I must clear it. He doesn't advocate at all that you become all lazy, leave everything, only introspect and meditate, do nothing. No. Life is what it is about means life should have life. That is liveliness. Yes. There should be liveliness, that there should be activity in our life, some meaning, purpose. I want no truck with death. That means no association. I want no association with death. I don't want you to live like death on this planet. Yes. A dead person, not at all. That be a burden on this earth. No, I don't want that. But death in life, not at all. I don't want that to be, to you to be death in life. Living like a dead person, unproductive. No, unproductive. Unwielding, no. It should be what? Productive, creative, constructive. Life should have some purpose, some meaning. So that's what he wants. So now the poet is saying, if we were not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving, that means we are single-minded. What he's saying, if we were not so single-minded, that means we are single-minded. We are selfish. We are trapped in the cell of self. We are egocentric, we are egomaniac, we are egoistic, and we are egotistic. Ego. We are just captured in that. We are captive of that, our ego, our self, selfishness. So if we were not so, if we were not that selfish, if we can come out of that pit of selfishness for once, because otherwise what? We only think of our own progress, our own advancement, that I should move ahead now, whether at the cost of somebody else, doesn't matter. Whether like just trampling or stampeding or just harming others, doesn't matter. Only, yes, I should move ahead. I should make progress. Even by killing somebody else doesn't matter. So, yes, if we were not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving, it means if we can come out of that selfishness, that self-centeredness, and for once could do nothing. For once could do nothing. That means for once if we can sit still, yes, sit all still and meditate, introspect. Just close your eyes and start meditating, introspecting. Then what? Perhaps a huge silence might interrupt the sadness of never understanding ourselves. That means the poet is trying to say in that silence, in that moment of meditation, we'll understand the sadness in our lives, that there is sadness in our lives. Why? Because we don't understand ourselves. That's the main reason of sadness in our lives. We are sad. Why? Because we don't know ourselves. That what our potential is, what our abilities are, what our capacities are, we don't understand. We expect beyond all that perhaps sometimes, or we don't know what weaknesses we have, and so what? We fall prey to such things. We become sad, we become gloomy. That's the reason. Now I'll give you an example. You prepared very well for a test, you studied very late at night, and you just avoiding your sleep even properly, and you studied. And what happened? The test was not at all very good for you. You didn't fare well in the test. And definitely what it makes us upset. And then what? If we just linger in that mood. See, either the paper was really very difficult And so how should we analyze? I'm telling you all that, and I'm telling you the reason of this sadness. So what, that paper was really quite difficult, and so what the merit will be as per that, means if in easy paper merit can go up to 99% or so or whatever. In difficult paper the merit will come down. So what it means, you are at the same level almost. That whether difficult or easy, you did as per your capacity or as per your potential. More or less, I'm taking in that way. So why should we bother them? Why should we be sad? Or what, that, okay, I worked very well, I prepared very well, I did it to my best. Now, okay, if I couldn't fare well, fine, I accept, okay, no problem at all. I'm happy with what I could do and what I did. I'm happy with that. Or, I did everything, I studied all the things, I didn't leave even just a minute thing or just even a small topic, I covered all, and still I couldn't fare well. Now what could be the reason? Now need I think about my strategy, that do I lack there? Do I need to work on my strategy? What? So it means, then where is the room for sadness? Either the paper was difficult, so difficulty was for all. And so your merit, okay, if you were scoring 99 earlier, then you may score a bit less, but then the others also will score less in general. So then it's okay. Or that you prepared well as per to the best of your capacities, to the best of your abilities you prepared. So then it's okay, you accept whatever it was, you accept that. Or now you understand that yes, there is something where I can work. Yes, you can work on the strategy. You get that. So then where is the room for sadness? So the poet says, when we introspect, we understand all these things, that we don't need to be sad at all. The sadness can be avoided if we understand our abilities and capacities. And then we won't be afraid of even death. It means the poet is trying to say that people are afraid of death. Yes, people are afraid of death. In general, if you ask people, are you afraid of death? Nobody would say, or say very small number of people would say that yes, they are afraid of death. And otherwise, most of the people would say they don't fear death. But when you are face to face with death, then yes, people fear death. That is the truth. When you are face to face with it, you fear death. That is the reality. Then people want another lease of life. People don't want to die at the time. They would they would talk to, or they would just request or plead to the god of death that, oh Yamraj, please, not this time, some other time. I don't have time even to die. I'm so, entangled. So that is the truth. People fear death because people have entangled themselves in so many things that, dreams and desires and so many other things that people fear. It obsesses them. So then, but can you avoid it? Of course not. It is inevitable. It is inevitable, unavoidable. Even if you fear it will be there, then why fear? Let it come here whenever. You cannot avoid. So let's accept the truth, the fact, the reality, and just move on with that. And now, the poet says, perhaps this earth can teach us. No, it's about this earth. So perhaps this earth can teach us, when everything seems dead, later proves to be alive. Now what does that mean? That this earth, is revolving, rotating. Do we realize? Is there anybody who thinks or who feels that yes, it's going on like this, round and round and round? Is there? Of course, nobody. And if there is any, then there is some problem with that person. We don't realize that earth is continuously, it is, revolving and rotating. So what does it tell us? That there can be activity even in seeming stillness. Yes. We can be creatively active, we can be constructively, innovatively active. It doesn't mean that only just rush and run. Yes, only that means life and activity. No. You can be constructively active, you can be innovatively active. So, 1. And 2, earth never stops. Earth never stops. Like, okay, that lots of people died there. There has been some disaster or some catastrophe or something like that, and thousands of people have died. So I should, go and just lament and wail and weep, and then I should move on. No, earth never stops. And even not that, okay, is that some celebration is going on, people are dancing and merrymaking and having some party and this and that, and I should go and just dance and just on some numbers, and yes, I should celebrate. No. Earth doesn't stop even there. So then what should we learn from this earth? And what does this mean when everything seems dead, later proves to be alive? Everything is happening simultaneously here on this earth, on this planet. Life and death, creation and destruction, light and dark, day and night, yes, all this is happening. So everything seems dead and later proves to be alive. So we need to understand what? Keep moving, don't stop. Because stopping is death and moving is life. We have to move on like that always. That is life. That is what we have to learn from this. And finally, what the poet says, now I'll count to 12 and you will all keep quiet and I'll go. What does that mean? That finally he has prepared us for that moment of introspection, for that moment of silence, meditation. And now, after that, as we are all prepared for that, now the role of the poet is over, so he'll leave. So that's what he is saying here in this poem. I think the idea is very much clear, that what he has tried to convey, importance of introspection has been explained and stressed here in this poem. So, now let's discuss some important questions from this poem. As you can see here, first one, according to the poet, what is it that we can learn from nature? So what we can learn from nature, we discussed about earth and what earth teaches us. So we can learn that there can be activity even in stillness. We can learn that we should never stop, we should keep moving, because stopping is death and moving is life. That's what the earth teaches us. It goes on and on and on. It never stops. So these are the things that we have to learn, and you can modify it as per the question and a bit more explain this. Second, why is Pablo Neruda against total inactivity? So, because total inactivity is not the solution of any problem. It can even further worsen the situation. Moreover, inactive life is no life at all. It is like a total, it is death in life in a way. Total inactivity when you are not doing anything. So it is unproductive, and unproductive life is of no use, because life itself means there should be liveliness. there should be some meaning and purpose. So he doesn't advocate total inactivity, rather he says that we should make it meaningful and useful. Which sadness is Pablo Neruda worried about in this poem? The sadness of never understanding ourselves. That's what he is worried about. That people don't understand themselves, and that's why they get sad or there is sadness in their lives. So to know ourselves, we need to introspect. And when we know ourselves, when we know our abilities and our potentials, our capacities, then there is no chance that we can be sad ever in our life. We'll always be able to overcome that sadness. Of course, we are human beings, so there can be sorrows and joys, but we shouldn't stick to those sorrows and joys. Being a human being, okay, express your sorrow, your emotions and feelings for a certain failure, but just move on then. We have certain victory or certain triumphs or certain good moments in our life. Enjoy, celebrate, but don't stick to that, move on. So that's what it says. And what is the exotic moment that Pablo Neruda refers to in this poem? So exotic moment is what? When there would be no rush, no engines, no noise at all, no movement at all. People would just in a peace. People would be in peace and silent and just introspecting. So that would be an exotic moment when people would have a feeling of togetherness and solidarity. That would be an exotic moment, according to the poet. And how can suspension of activity help? So, suspension of activity helps us understand ourselves better. This is actually aiming at the theme of the poem. So it helps us knowing ourselves better, it helps us understanding ourselves better and the world as well. And that helps us just better improve on what we have, what we are and what we have. So we can improve on that. We can understand the problems in our lives and we can work on that and we can move ahead in our lives. So that's how that suspension of activity, it makes us understand everything on this planet in our life and around our life. So that's how the suspension helps. And how, according to Pablo Neruda, can keeping quiet change our attitude to life? So keeping quiet, almost the same, fifth and sixth almost, but yes, have been asked in your exams, so that's why I've taken both, that it can be asked in two different ways. So this is just the other way of asking the same thing. So keeping quiet can help us knowing ourselves better and the world as well, and in that way will overcome the problems or will come out of those things we are indulged in, like we are harming the nature, we don't realize. So after introspecting or after keeping quiet, we'll be able to come out of that we will get to know that our activities are harming ourselves. So we'll understand that and will then come out of that and not harm ourselves. So these are the things in which keeping quiet can help us, that people don't understand that what brutalities war can cause. And after this keeping quiet, we can understand that and will come out of all such problems and things that are prevailing in our society and just circling us. So we can come out of all that by keeping quiet. So this is how we can answer this one. And these are just some of the important questions. But yes, the important thing is you should know each and every phrase in this line. You should understand each and every word in this line, in this poem, sorry. So if you understand that, you'll be able to answer any question and however it is asked. So that's it. The poem Keeping Quiet is now over. I hope you have understood this poem. Thank you very much.